Hey everybody, it's Kara. Welcome back to this mini series that we are doing on the Obsidian Tasks community plugin. And just as a reminder, if you are new to this series, I'll put the links in the description below or using cards up above so that you can find all of the good videos that we've made so far. You're just on number 3 in the series, and it's shaping up to be like a 10 video series. It's going to be very long, which I hope is helpful. I hope it's in depth and it gives you some of the information that you need, because the goal here is that I'm designing the task management system that works for me in Obsidian, and I want to show you what I've learned and hopefully help you design the task management system that works for you. So if you've got questions or comments, please feel free to put those below, or you can join my community. I will put a link in the description below. Joining is free, but if you want access to our Obsidian office hours, which happen every other week, and it's just an open forum for folks to come in on Zoom, you can share your screen, you can ask questions, and get help on anything Obsidian related, I will put a link to that in the description below as well. I would love to have you there. So in those first 2 videos, we talked first about what the global task filter is. I use #task as my global task filter. We will see that come into play quite a bit more in today's video. And in the second video, we talked about task statuses. We're not going to see that quite as much today. I think we'll see it one time in today's video, but we'll get into it quite a bit more in the next video where we start actually building queries with our tasks. So today we are going to look at all of the different ways that you can edit tasks in Obsidian. There are lots of different ways to do this, and one of the sort of challenging things is picking the way or ways that work best for you all the time. I'm going to try to show you all of the ways, but the best default way, if you don't want to choose, is to just use the Obsidian Task Modal, and I'll show you how to access that from the command palette in a little while and how that works. That will have almost all your options in it, but again, we all work differently. Different tools fit us in different ways. And so I want to show you all the different ways that it can work so that you can choose the option that works best for you. So as I mentioned, that first video in the sequence was on the global task filter. And I like to use the #task as my filter for tasks. I have a list of tasks that I could use in a template for, say, a trip. And I travel a lot, whether that's personally because I just love to explore the world and see new places, or for business. I'm a consultant in my non-Obsidian time doing my work. And so I travel all over the place, and I am constantly having to keep all of the details for different trips straight. And so since every trip is just a little different and there's nuances to it, I like to just keep a default set of checklist items in my trip template, and then I can come into that template when I create a new trip and I can set those up as tasks very, very easily. So we are here in my demo vault, and I have a simple file here for a trip to Australia that we're going to use as a demonstration. And I have a template set up here in my templates folder for a trip. And if you're interested in templates, I love templates. And so I'm actually going to do a whole other series on templates in the near future. But for now, I'm just going to insert a template. I only have one in this vault, and it's for trip. So what I've done here is I've inserted a list of what are now checklist items, because there's no #task on the front of these. But let's say I decide, okay, I want to take a trip to Australia. Well, I don't need to do this because that's already on there. I do need to add dates to my shared calendar. I share a calendar with my housemate, so I do need to add that. And I'm gonna just I'm not gonna give that a due date. It doesn't really. I'll get it done when I get it done. It's fine. She would say that I never get it done fast enough, which is totally okay. But I'm going to add another task here, which is to book my air. And notice that when I did that, as soon as I did that, this auto suggester came up. And this is that Obsidian task settings auto suggester that we've talked about previously. Let's go back to the Obsidian settings and take a look at the tasks community plugin and go down here to the auto suggest option. So I have the auto suggest task content, I have that turned on. And that is what allows that little auto selector to come up. So let's say I'm going to give this a due date of, we'll give it a due date of Tuesday. I've already actually booked the air for this trip, but it is a good example. I might also want to add a little bit more detail in here, although you'll see when we query that the name of the file is actually included. So you may not need to query, but it's an option if you want to. I can add one more here as a task. There we go. And book accommodations, we'll give that a start date of 2026-01-03. Who knows when I'm going to do that? Actually, we've already done that. And then the book air transportation or other ground transfers, I will give that a task option. And then I'm going to give that a highest priority. So you can sort of see how all of these different options work. One of the options that you can only add either using the emoji language or using the task auto suggester is the on completion option. And so this add dates to shared calendar, this is one of those that I don't really need to see it once it's done. Once it's done, it's just done, and I don't need to be reminded of whether or not I did it. So I can come down here to on completion. The default behavior for Obsidian is to keep tasks. If you want to delete them, you have to add the word delete after. The adding keep after on completion is really kind of redundant because that's already the default behavior. So you really don't need to do that. But it is an option. If you want to add that functionality, you could, but you really just don't need to. So I could continue to edit these tasks, but we're going to look at a little bit more about the task language first, and then we will come back and finish with some more examples. But I can also do that using the emoji language. And for a little while, I'm going to dig into that emoji language as well. On a Mac, especially, which I'm on, accessing the checkered flag emoji is very, very easy. I just hit my globe key on my keyboard, and that will bring up the emoji task picker, and I can just select the checkered flag option. So that's another option for this, and then I can type delete. And I can actually do that with any of the emoji language already set up in the Tasks plugin. So let's take a look at all of the different options that you have and the emojis for those. And then we'll dig into that task modal that simplifies all of this so you don't have to remember the emojis and the orders and all of that jazz. It just makes it so much easier to use that create edit task modal. So let's start with the emojis for our dates. Obsidian can actually handle 6 different kinds of dates. And those are due, start, scheduled, created, done, and canceled. Now, created, done, and canceled can actually be added automatically using settings in the Task Community plugin. If you remember, we looked at those briefly in the first video in the series. And so you can access those using the community plugin settings and looking at that on the Tasks Community plugin and deciding whether or not you want to use those options. When we use dates in our tasks in Obsidian, they take what are called arguments. And for all 6 of those date types, the argument is just a date in that year, month, day format. I'm going to put a table up here on the screen that shows you what each one of those different dates looks like, what its argument style is, and sort of what it looks like with the emoji and the date after it, with some different examples filled in. So you can see here that I have a created date of November the 13th. I've got a scheduled date of December the 1st. I've got a start date, that's the one with the little airplane, of January the 1st. I've got a due date, that's the calendar icon, of November the 19th. I've got a done date of December the 3rd, and then a canceled date of December the 20th. So you can use these as you're using your tasks to then create really powerful queries, which we're going to cover in the next video, that allow you to slice and dice your tasks in all sorts of ways by all of these different kinds of dates. Now, in a future video where I do talk through how I'm going to build my system, One of the things that I've decided is that I'm only going to use a date if the date really matters. In the first video in this series, I talked about adding created dates to all of my tasks, and you'll even see those in some of the future videos as I've sort of played around and evolved this system, which is another good reason why doing all of this in a test vault before I actually roll it out in my real vault is really valuable, because I've been able to sort of try things and make decisions with it and sort of decide how it will work for me. And I'm not messing up any of my data. I don't have to go back and try to fix anything or anything like that. So it's been a really valuable experience. So then let's go ahead and take a look at changing those settings so that my created date is not actually turned on. So I'm going to go to the settings menu. I'm going to go down to Obsidian tasks, and I'm going to open up its settings, and I'm just going to scroll down to the date section. And this will show me where the set created date on every added task is, the set done date on every completed task, and set canceled date on every canceled task. I'm actually going to leave the done and canceled set to on, but I'm going to turn off created. Now again, because I already had this on for a little while during testing, it's still going to show up in different places. I'm even going to use it in a future video, but then it's going to go away. So this is what happens when you're testing in a live video. So we're here in our demo vault, and I've got some tasks set up that we're going to both mark complete and canceled using a couple of different ways that we can do that. So first of all, we're going to just simply complete this check. We're in editing mode right now. So we're in the live preview mode. And so we're going to just check this off by clicking the checkbox. So that's usually the simplest way that most people will mark a task as complete. So then if I cancel this task, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to turn off in the settings so that you can see this demonstration. I'm going to tell it to not set the canceled date. So when I come up here, I'm going to mark this task as canceled by just putting in a dash. And notice that it does mark it, but that completion date, that X, does not get added. So if I want to add that, I can do that manually using the emoji for canceled. And I can put in the date. There we go. So that would still show up in my canceled queries if I wanted to. I also want to show you how you can use a query to get even more options. So the way you're typically going to interact with tasks is via a query. So if I come down here to this query, we're going to just check this one with the hand wave off. I use the little emojis to make them a little easier to find. There it is. So I'm just going to check this one off just by checking it. So simple, and it disappears. But this one, I'm going to cancel it, and I can do that in a query by actually right-clicking it, and then I get this option to set it to canceled. And again, notice it disappears because that is a done status, but that did not get the cancel date added to it because, of course, I turned that option off in the task settings. Before the next video walkthrough, I will turn that setting back on. We've talked about the 6 kinds of dates that you can use in your tasks, but let's take a look at the priorities. I don't actually use priorities in my system. It's just more gunk that I don't need, clogging up the works and making my brain blow up a little bit. But Obsidian does have 6 different default priorities. None is actually the normal priority. No emoji gets added to it. But again, I'll put a table here on the screen to show the lowest, low, medium, high, and highest priority icons. So if you want to use those for your tasks, you can. One of the things about the tasks plugin that I do want to make sure I'm always just reiterating to people is that just like with the task statuses, you can repurpose the name that somebody else has given to it to use it in a different way. So I have somebody who I work with as an Obsidian coaching client who they actually use the Obsidian task statuses as a way to divide their tasks up by their grouping. Now that is absolutely not the way that Obsidian Task is designed to use. It works for that person and for their brain, but you absolutely could do that if you wanted to do that. So Instead of letting them be lowest, low, high, you could repurpose them to work, personal, home and family, church, whatever. If you wanted to do that, you could still then search by them. I don't really love that option. If you're going to do that, I think it's better to make it a little bit more obvious and use a tag, which I will show you in our querying video, how I use tags. But it is possible. So I want you to know that it's possible and it's an option if you want to do that. The other option that you can set is recurrence. I'm going to do a whole video on recurrence after we talk about queries. I think recurrence is really important. It's a really powerful feature of Obsidian Tasks. I've been using Obsidian Tasks, at least playing around with it, even since long before they had recurrence available. So I've been there since the way back. But if you do want to add recurrence, that is just using the little loop symbol, loopy arrow symbol, or the repeat symbol, I think is what it's called in the emoji language. So that's an option for you as well. And finally, Obsidian also has a really light project management option available. I will do a video on that. Again, it'll be after our query video and after our recurrence video, just to show you that they're trying to build this out more. And I get it, but that's not what I want to use Obsidian for. Plus, most of the time my tasks don't need that, but I will show you what that is. And you can give tasks IDs to use with that. And so I'll show you how to set that up in a future video. I'm not going to show it to you now. So if you want to look at that, you can in a future time. So now that we've gone through the anatomy of a task and we have all of those different pieces and parts that we can use, I do want to show you how you can build out a task manually without using the auto suggester, and that's using the emoji language. One thing I suggest, if you're not going to use the auto suggester, which is fine, that's totally up to you, is that you consider using something like a text expansion tool like Typinator, which is my personal preference, to create little snippets so that you can quickly add those emojis to your tasks. Typinator is a great tool for creating keyboard snippets that you can then use through text expansion. So I have set up this set and that's the language that Typinator uses, called Obsidian Tasks. And if I right click on this set and see the set info, you'll see that it's just called Obsidian Tasks. I've given everything in this set the same prefix. So I trigger them with OT semicolon. And then all I have to do as I create one of these is add the trigger word. So like to the created date, we'll have the trigger word of create. The delete task will have the trigger word of DEL. The due date will have the trigger word of due, and so on and so forth. So we're here in Obsidian, and to most easily demonstrate how to use the emoji function, I'm going to first turn off the auto suggester. So I'm going to open up my settings. There we go. And I'm already in the tasks settings, and there we go. I'm going to turn that off. And I'm going to close that. And so now if I start to type here, let's go ahead and close Obsidian and reopen it. And we're back. I've restarted Obsidian it's always a good reminder that when you are messing with anything in your settings, especially your plugins, you often need to restart Obsidian for those changes to take effect. So that's a good thing when that happens to you. So we're here and we've got these 3 tasks that we're going to work on. And again, that auto suggester is turned off. So if I start to type a word like do, my screen has gone very slow. There we go. Notice the auto suggester is turned off. So let's go ahead and use our emojis to add the due date to it. So I want this to have a due date, and it's going to be Friday. And I'm recording this section just a little bit after the original section. So I'm actually going to use real dates here. And Friday's date is 01-09. And this is updating my transactions in YNAB is an everyday task for me. So it recurs, or an every week task for me, every week on Friday. So a couple of things when you're using this emoji language, you'll find that you've got to know what that syntax is for that recurrence. So again, this is another reason why I don't love this option, but I think it's important to show people that this is possible. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this transfer money to the savings account for the Busty Bungalow. This is I don't know why those characters are coming up. This again is a task that I do. It's due every month on the 15th, so we'll give it the 15th. Oops, 2026, the year has changed. The interesting thing about this task is I can't actually start it until the 15th either. So I'm going to give it the start icon, which is the airplane icon. So it can't start till that date because I haven't gotten paid until that date. So you can add any of those emojis, and then I can I'm so used to typing them with the auto suggester. This is going to complete every month. And then what you can do, and you can do this whether you're using the auto suggester or not, if you want to apply the same set of parameters to another task, you can also copy and paste them because this is the same basic guidelines as that previous task. So lots of options here to add. Again, I don't love not using the auto suggester, but for some people it may annoy you. And so my goal is always to help you know how to use Obsidian in the way that works best for you. You have that option. Finally, one of the reasons why I use Obsidian tasks is because of the richness of what you can actually put in the task description, the actual text that goes in your text. In your task, it's easy to say, not really. So you can add links, both internal in your vault as well as external to other web pages. I use both of those abundantly in my task management system today. And it's one of the reasons why when I'm trying to use other apps for task management, they just always fall apart. Obsidian works better for this. You can also use Obsidian tags in your tasks. And I'll show you some strategies you might want to use for that to show you how to do that as well. So those are the other options you can do. And all that goes in the description box in the Obsidian Task Modal or just in the body of the task when you are doing your tasks inline. So let's take a look at all of the rich text that you can add to the description of a task. And we'll also use this just as a way to demonstrate some of the different things that you can add to tasks. So we already know that to create a new task, we start with the dash, a space, the left bracket, a space, and a right bracket. And as you can see, it takes me a lot longer to say it than it does to type it. And then in my setup, because I am using that global task filter, I have to use the word task. So I'm going to go ahead and type in finish uploading video contents. I can't spell, for Max to edit. So Max is my video editor. He does a great job with these. And what I'm going to do here is I've highlighted this text and I'm going to insert a link to the Google Drive folder that Max and I are using for these videos. So I'm going to do Control K, and I've already got it on my clipboard, so I'm just going to do Control V, and that is now there. And then I can go ahead and assign all the other information. So this has a due date of today. Again, my goal is to keep my task system in the future as simple as possible and not add any dates or things that I don't need. So now we're going to take a look at how to add an internal link. So you can do this to link to another page or even to a specific section of a page. I find this valuable in so many ways. I'm going to create my new task here using the same way we just did. And then this is one where I'm going to actually say that I want to update YNAB, which is the system I use for my finances, every day. And so I need to repeat this, and it's going to be every day. And this one, I'm going to give that on completion. I actually want it to delete because once I've added it or once I've updated it, I don't need to see that task again. So that can be deleted. You can also add tasks with tags. That is not easy to say. So you've seen this before when we do this task option, but this is actually a way that I've used historically, and this is something I'm still working out for myself if this is going to continue to be the way I'm going to do it in my task system. Historically used tags to denote projects or areas of my life, similar to like a GTD projects perspective or a Tiago Forte para perspective. So I'm just going to use one of those now. which is resolve the issue with the grocery delivery. And this is related to my home, which I live in with my best friend. We call it the Bestie Bungalow, and I am the major domo of the house. So like dealing with those kinds of issues is my responsibility, and that has to be done tomorrow. All right, so there we go. We can see that we can add all of these different things, and you can combine these. So I could have a single task that has one or more external links, one or more internal links, and one or more tags in it to make it show up. We will look at this more in the video coming up on queries. Well, I've spent a good part of the video showing you what is possible using the auto suggester and even by typing the emoji language. Far and away, the most common way that I create and edit tasks is using the create and edit tasks modal that is a part of the plugin itself. So let's just look at how to find that plugin. I'm going to do Command P here on a Mac. If you're on a Windows device, it's Control P. And I can already see that tasks, create or edit task is right here. If for some reason that doesn't show up for you, you can also find it by just starting to type the word tasks, which is the name of that plugin. And then once you find it, you can highlight it and enter it. So this is our create and edit task modal. And I can create a task using this modal very, very easily. So I am going to create a task of sending the updated video to Max for part 8 of the series. We're not there yet, but a girl can dream. And let's just walk through what is here in the modal. I can set my priorities here if I'm using those. This isn't something that I use, but it is an easy way to set your priorities. I can decide if this is recurring. One of the things I like about this, while this isn't a recurring task, I'll show you how this works. If I start typing in daily here as the recurrence rule, you'll see that it shows invalid recurrence rule. So I can tell very easily if my recurrence is going to work. So, and it starts to give me some hints. So if I say every day, it says you've got to have one of these dates. So for this recurrence to be valid, then I have to type in a due date here. So I'm going to say due Saturday. There we go. And so that gives me, it's actually a week from today. I can also use the date picker right here. So I can come over and I can choose the date that I want this to be due. So we'll actually make this due. We'll leave it to the 17th. That's fine. I'm going to remove the recurrence because that's not even remotely real on this task. And we have a due date here. I could also set schedule dates. I could have start dates. I have this selector to turn on and off for only future dates. Let's say that I don't want that to be on. This will actually let me now set a date that's in the past. So I can actually add an overdue task to my task list if I want to. If I add the future dates in there, now if I try to select a date in the past, it still let me. Interesting. I hadn't tested that before, so who knows? I'm going to actually just fix it here and set it to the 17th. There we go. This before this and after this is where we do the dependencies. If I click in here, this will show me what I want to do for, I think I have another video which has, yes, I do, has Max in it. So maybe this particular task can only be done after that other task that I do for Max. So now this task would not show up to me as an available task when we talk about the Obsidian projects functionality in the task management in a future video. This will make a little bit more sense. The other reason I really like the task modal is that I can set any of my various statuses right here. I'm going to leave this as a to-do because that's what it is, but it is a nice option if I want to change status as well. I can add a created date if I want to. So maybe I want this to be created on today. There we go. And hit apply. And now you see that task has been added to my page. This ID, which I don't think we've seen too much before, is a part of that project management system. But all the rest of the parts of the anatomy of this task should look pretty normal to you. Now, it's not that hard to do Command P, and then of course, because I use this quite often, it's often at the top of my tasks modal, of my command palette. but I may want to actually just set a hotkey for this. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to do that. I'm going to open up my settings. On a Mac, I can do that with Command, comma. And your hotkeys, I'll just remind you of this, may be different from mine already. This vault has, I think I've set them back properly to the default because I'd only changed a couple as I was testing. So the first thing I want to do, I want to use Command T for a new task. So the first thing I want to do is see if Command T is used for any other hotkeys. So I'm going to hit the little keyboard right here, and I'm going to type Command T, and I can see that that is used for new tab. Now, if you already use new tab, you use Command T all the time for that, you're not going to want to change that keyboard shortcut probably. So you'll want to pick something different for Create Edit Task. I actually don't use this, so I'm going to cancel that, and then I'm going to close out of this to get all of my tasks back. And now I'm going to search for task, and I can see here is the Create or Edit Task option, and I'm going to add a hotkey for that, which is Command T. There we go. So now when I come over here to my keyboard and I do Command T, it opens up that task modal. So it makes it just a little bit quicker for me, which is quite nice. Okay, so I can also use the this to edit a task. So let's go back to that trip to Australia that we started with at the beginning. And let's say that I actually do want to turn this brainstorm all tasks into an actual task. If I do Command T on this item, it fills the description in here for me. And Australia trip successful and a true joy for Susie. This trip is really for my sister. She retired last year, and so we are taking this trip for her to celebrate that. And we're going to say that this is due by, I really do need to start focusing on this trip. We're going to make it due by Monday. And I'm actually going to put some time in my calendar tomorrow to work on it. Again, I don't usually use the scheduled option unless I'm like, you don't need to think about this. You've already scheduled it. You're done. You don't need to worry about it. And there's nothing else here that I need to think about. I'm not going to add a created date because it doesn't really matter here. Hit apply, and there we go. That task is now edited. The nice thing about this is when I'm using these checklist templates, it does actually make it very easy to just filter through all of the things in that template quite easily and make any of the modifications specific to that particular checklist. All right, guys, well, this has been a long one, but I hope it's been valuable. If you have questions, I hope that you'll put them in the comments below. I would love to interact with you. But the faster way to get these videos, if you want to get the next one a little bit quicker, is to actually be a part of my Circle community. I'm going to put the link below so that you can join there. And it is a very low cost to join. It's just $5 a month for all of the content right now, and I'm planning quite a few things, so if you're in early, it'll give you the opportunity to get those, what I've got planned are classes and templates and all sorts of things. You'll be in at the beginning and you'll get all of that added in the future. When I increase the price later, you won't experience those price increases, which would be awesome for you. So if you want to join, please do so. If that's not a good option for you right now budgetarily, but you do want to join my Obsidian office hours, I'll also put a link in this description below for that. A little bit different price point, but still a really good value. And then finally, if you want to get a little bit of information about me every week, I've got my newsletter link in the description below, and I'll always highlight when I'm publishing new things in that link. I will see you back here next time for our video on querying tasks.